first question. How do you train for football, or how did you train for football when you played in high school?
When I was in high school, we really didn't have much of a strength and conditioning program. It was all just relied on you. So when I was training in high school, I had to take it upon myself to watch YouTube videos, watch how other people trained, and just try to seek out answers. So how I trained was a lot in the summer and try to do a lot of one-on-one with like my teammates and I to go up and throw a football in the summer, run routes, watch film on our own. So I did a ton of self-scouting and a ton of scouting on my own because it really wasn't a thing from when I was in high school to go out and train with a bunch of people.
All right, next question. Question 2. Have you noticed a difference in how the athletes that you coach train for football now, and what are the differences?
Yeah, so with coaching those athletes and having my experiences that weren't so great, the biggest difference I noticed, especially in a couple of our classes here at Chesaning, is a more of a want to. So when I was growing up in high school football, it was our top 5 or 6 kids that trained, where here you're seeing 80% of the team wants to train and wants to get better. And so that's where I think the biggest difference is you don't just have your top athletes and top kids wanting to train. It's more so the extended contributing kids that are training as well. And so that's the biggest difference I see from when I grew up to Chesaning.
All right, next question. What advice were you given on how to recover from injuries when you played?
Yeah, so you guys have a Julie here that helps you guys recover from injury and stay healthy. When I was growing up, we had a chiropractor. We just basically cracked your back and said you were fine. So we weren't really given too much advice on how to recover from injuries. It was only, hey, throw some ice on it and tough luck, suck it up and play.
All right, next question. What impact did injuries have on your athletic ability in high school?
Yeah, injuries can definitely have a huge impact. Thankfully, I was fortunate enough to not have too many injuries going through high school, besides like getting teeth knocked out and stuff like that. But none of that really kept me out of sports. I do see the difference from nowadays to when I was in high school. But the injuries I had in high school weren't that bad. It was an injury I had in college. And that has a long-lasting effect on me. So I blew out my shoulder playing football, and I still feel to this day where I can't really throw a baseball or a football very well. So if you don't take care of those injuries properly, you can have a lifelong lasting effect.
All right, last question. What impact do injuries have on your athletes you coach today? Are they worse? Do they take longer to recover from? Is there different advice / rules on how do you prepare them today?
Yeah, so the impact, I don't think it's any different, right? Injuries are injuries. A human body is a human body. It really hasn't changed too much. You do see more injury prevention nowadays on taking a proactive approach instead of a reactive approach. And I do think giving kids time to heal is important. So the impact on injuries nowadays versus back then, it's really not that much different. Because the human body is a human body. But I do think if kids don't take care of injuries properly and don't have the right mindset, then yeah, they will have lifelong lasting effects on them.
All right, first question. In your opinion, what are the worst injuries athletes have today?
So I think that there's 2 different kinds of injuries that I think are the worst. One, I think, is ACLs, only because they take the longest to heal, in my opinion, because it's usually a whole year process. Unless you're like in the NFL, then it could be 6 to 8 months. And then the other one is concussions, because it can have a long-term effect on your brain when you get older after you're done playing sports.
Okay. Second question. What are the most important stretches / movements that you teach your athletes to prevent these injuries?
With assistance from our strength and conditioning coach, Josh. Shout out to Josh Chrysler. We teach our athletes here how to do a dynamic warm-up before every practice and every game. Not a whole lot you can do for concussions to decrease the risk of those. You can do a lot of neck strengthening things in the weight room, and also just teaching the kids the risks that can happen when they get a concussion and if they go back in.
All right, third question. Injuries in contact sports have increased over the years. Why do you think they have?
I think a lot of it is that we have so much improved things in the weight room that we can use these days that a lot of the athletes are stronger than they've ever been before. And when they're stronger, they hit harder, and that creates worse injuries.
Okay, next question. 4. Research says head injuries have increased over the years. What can coaches/trainers do to try to lower these head injuries?
The biggest thing, in my opinion, is teaching and educating all of coaches and athletes both about the risks and just inform them about like what concussions are and what the risks are if they were to go back in and they do have a concussion, because there is such thing called a second impact syndrome, that if you do have a concussion and say during soccer or football, if you get hit a second time, you can just, this sounds terrible, but you can die right out on the field if you do have a concussion and you do get hit a second time.
All right, last question. 5. What contact sports would you say are concussions the most common in, and why?
Obviously, I think the worst ones are all of your contact sports. So we don't have this sport here, but lacrosse is a big one. Football, obviously, they do have protection on their heads, which sometimes doesn't make a difference. And then also in soccer, because they have absolutely no padding at all except for their shins.